Okay, welcome again, everyone. Very excited to share this presentation about medication abortion on our campus with you. My name is Val Battle Haddock, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a fourth-year student at San Marcos studying women's gender and sexuality studies, as well as criminology and justice studies. And I'm giving this presentation in two different capacities. One is a pro-abortion student advisor for a really awesome organization called URGE, and as the vice president of a student org here on campus called Feminists Unite. URGE is a nationwide reproductive justice organization that focuses on empowering young people to take action in regards to reproductive and social justice issues, such as abortion access and many other things as well. And I've had the pleasure to serve as a pro-abortion student advisor for the last year, doing outreach, collecting student feedback, and working to implement the College Student Right to Access Act, which I'll be talking about more in just a second. And Feminists Unite is actually a chapter of URGE, so we also focus on reproductive justice on campus. And we are looking for more members and leadership very soon. So if you're a student and you're interested, let me know. But we do fun events like virtually and on campus. For instance, this Thursday, we're going to be distributing some Sex Be Great kits on campus. So this will just be like little, they're like little baggies with like condom and lube and Plan B and pregnancy tests, a bunch of other cool stuff. So anyway, okay. So this is the agenda, just so everyone knows like what is going to happen, but there will be a land acknowledgement, community agreements. I'll talk more about SB 24, which is the College Student Right to Access Act, give an overview of medication abortion, talk about why it's important, give some ideas of how to talk about abortion, and have some time for a discussion and a closing reflection, also a couple action items. And so I can go ahead and give the land acknowledgement unless there are any people Indigenous to California or Indigenous to the United States who would like to do so otherwise. But I don't see any hands raised, so okay. So we acknowledge that this virtual meeting is taking place throughout the unceded territory of California, which is home to nearly 200 tribal nations. I acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of our various regions. A land acknowledgement is a critical step towards working with Native communities to secure meaningful partnership and inclusion in the stewardship and protection of their cultural resources and homelands. I recognize and honor these ancestral grounds that I reside and learn upon, and support the resilience and strength that all Indigenous people have shown worldwide. I'm currently learning online from my home in Escondido, which is the traditional unceded territory of the Kumeyaay peoples. And if you know what native land you're on, you can drop it in the chat or come off mute. And if you don't know, you can text your zip code to this number and it will tell you, or you can go to nativeland.ca, which I can put in the chat for you. Okay, yeah, I'll give folks like 30 seconds to do that if they'd like. But this is just a good practice to be mindful of what land you're on. Okay. I will move on. I can get. Okay. So just briefly, since we will be having a discussion later, I just wanted to give everyone the opportunity to talk about some community guidelines. I have a few in mind if no one else wants to share any, but basically just like what community guidelines do we want to maintain today? You can come off mute or put them in the chat. Faith says respect people's pronouns, definitely. I like another one, just that there are no dumb questions. And Faith says calling in, not calling out. Thank you, Faith. Also, I would suggest that we have try things on, and that listening is not co-signing. So still listening, even if you don't, listening doesn't mean that you completely agree with someone. And does anyone else have any others that they'd like to share? Sonia says, use gender inclusive language when talking about abortion, reproductive health, etc. Definitely. And Esther says, be open-minded. I love all of these. Thank you. Okay. All right, I like this group. Are we feeling ready to move on? Okay. Okay, so here comes the part where I kind of talk at you for a little bit. And feel free to ask any questions. I'll have breaks for questions. So maybe try and hold on to them just so we're not like, I don't lose my train of thought. But you can also put them in the chat and I'll try and get to them. So SB 24, which is the College Student Right to Access Act. So it guarantees access to medication abortion to California's public university students by January 2023. So that means that January 1st next year, if you are a student on campus, you'll be able to access medication abortion. And it does this by granting $200,000 to each campus to provide medication abortion. It's also MAB is the shorthand, so you'll see MAB in some of these slides. But I'll try and say medication abortion not to confuse anyone. So background on this bill is that it was written by Senator Leyva, and this was propelled by the movement founded by Surge at UC Berkeley. And a massive coalition of student orgs, social justice groups, politicians, advocates, and so on fought hard to get this bill passed. And it was signed into law in 2019 by Governor Newsom. So just to make sure, again, that we're all on the same page, I just wanted to talk briefly about abortion methods. So there's surgical abortion and then medication abortion. And we'll be talking mostly about medication abortion today. But just as the distinction, surgical abortion would happen in a clinic, and it could be done like later in a pregnancy. And then medication abortion, which is also known as the abortion pill, could be used earlier in the pregnancy up to 11 weeks. And sometimes this is taken at home or partially in the clinic, partially at home. So what is medication abortion exactly? As I just said, it's the abortion pill, and it's a safe and effective way to end an early pregnancy. It's commonly used up to 10 to 11 weeks of pregnancy. That's how far the FDA has approved it. And it's very effective, 94 to 98%. And how does it work? So there's two different medicines to end a pregnancy, or this is one regimen to use both of them, which is mifepristone and misoprostol. And in this case, the mifepristone blocks the hormone progesterone, and then the misoprostol causes cramping and bleeding to empty the uterus. And the misoprostol would be taken later, 24 to 48 hours later after the first pill. And this could, for some people, it might feel just like a heavy period. For others, it could be more intense bleeding and pain. Everyone is different. And physiologically, a miscarriage is happening. Yeah, and some people, I kind of mentioned this, but some people might choose to do medication abortion just because they could do it at home, potentially. And I want to stress again that medication abortion is safe. Serious complications from MAB occur in less than 0.5% of cases, and it's even safer than taking ibuprofen or Viagra. So in terms of medication, it's really safe. And it has no effects on fertility or ability to carry a future pregnancy to term. There's no future of ectopic pregnancy, and there's no increased risk of breast cancer from taking medication abortion. And the statistic, over half, 54% of all abortions in the US are medication abortions, just came out pretty recently, the last few weeks, from the Guttmacher Institute. So medication abortion is not only safe, but it's also becoming extremely common. So overall, abortion is safe. I know we're mostly talking about medication abortion, but I just like to put this out there that there's no scientific evidence that abortion is harmful. Contrary to like anti-abortion rhetoric, there's really no quote unquote post-abortion syndrome. And that actually some studies have shown that the most common feeling after abortion is relief. And I can drop in the chat a couple links to articles about this if you're interested in learning more. But I think I'll do that at the end. But anyway, and then also being denied an abortion actually has really serious effects on the quality of life. And this is based on the Turnaway study, which in the book it's described as the first of its kind to investigate how abortion affects women by comparing those who get an abortion and those who do not get one. And the study took 10 years with 40 researchers and interviewing 1,000 people seeking to end their pregnancies at 30 different facilities across the United States. So it's a very comprehensive study. And except for the fact that it only focuses on cis women. So I do want to preface that, that there needs to be more research done into like trans and non-binary people who seek abortions. But for what we have, this is an extremely in-depth study. And this study found that there were short-term health effects, such as increased anxiety and loss of life satisfaction, as well as difficulty in leaving domestic partnerships. And in terms of long-term health effects, this could be severe physical health risks such as death and increased chronic head and joint pain, hypertension, and poorer self-rated overall health. And that was reported for the next 5 years for those who did not receive the abortion that they had wanted. And then also being denied an abortion sometimes caused economic hardships that were not experienced by those who had had an abortion. So just wanted to put those out there, kind of leading up to why medication abortion is so important, and that the consequences that can happen sometimes if someone who's seeking abortion is denied it. Okay, so I just said a lot of information. Are there any questions that anyone has about medication abortion?
Yeah, Val, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on a minute. I was going to write the chat to you because, so there.
Okay. So is one better than the other? Sonia, do you know the answer to this one in the chat?
Hi, I'm just reading the question. Which mifepristone or misoprostol my daughter can't take hormonal birth control because she gets oral migraines with the goodies? That's a really good question, Sarah. I would say that, you know, to my knowledge, there aren't any medical providers on the call right now that could like effectively recommend one over the other. The like combination regimen that Val is talking about with medication abortion uses both, and that's the most common method of abortion by pills, like in clinics. And if in the case that, yeah, your daughter is like interested in this care, it would be like, I think just recommended to talk about her history with aura migraines and see if there's any contraindications with those meds. So yeah, I wish I was a provider and could more effectively share that with you, but I would just say that's a conversation for a doctor.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing she doesn't need it, but it might be something worth finding for inputting with students, because I was really shocked to know that girls can be, young children can be affected by birth control that have hormones if you have aura migraines. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that question, and definitely would love to look more into that for future knowledge. And thank you, Sonia. Are there any, Faith? Did you have your hand up?
Yes. Sorry, I wanted to know if I know usually if you go to a clinic and you do like the medical procedure to get an abortion, they usually like have a conversation with you and, you know, tell you like, oh, just for like reference, I hope you know that there is like eventually there will be a baby growing in you. And, just like try to, I don't want to say talk you into not having an abortion, but they give you that like quote unquote information. So if a student were to go to their health center in their campus, they're not going to be asked or questioned anything, correct? Like, oh, like just are you sure like you want this or stuff like that. I know sometimes we can't prevent it because sometimes people just ask those questions. But I wanted to see if it was somewhere in the legislation that they're like supposed to, you know, ask you those questions like, oh, are you sure? Like, do you know this, this, and this? And try to give you like resources. Yeah, I hope that made sense.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, Faith. And I know at least on, I'll also probably defer to you again, Sonia, if that's okay. But just that from my like conversations with Urge and everyone, that we definitely are aware of that phenomenon. And I'm sure like the other partners who are implementing are aware of that as well. And it seems like, oh my gosh, I'm blinking. The Equality Access Health, is that what it's called, Sonia? Anyway, do you want to talk more about maybe the trainings that they're providing for staff?
Yeah, sure thing. And thanks for bringing that up, Faith. It's definitely like coercion around abortion or other like pregnancy options is unfortunately something that like lots of folks have to deal with, largely at crisis pregnancy centers, which actually operate as like fake clinics. Luckily, the partners that the schools are working with, and Val mentioned one of them, Essential Access Health, they're in charge of implementing clinical training, and they have like expertise in basically like incorporating abortion care into family medicine like health centers that offer other like reproductive and sexual health care. And they utilize a very like client-centered standard of like discussing options and counseling that, you know, is widely used across like full scope client-centered clinics like Planned Parenthoods and other like independent clinics that really take into consideration like what the pregnant person wants to do and gives them like, you know, as much as possible, like non-directive counseling to talk about like the best option for them. So because we have like really wonderful resources and training experts, like, you know, working with student health centers, we don't expect, you know, like reproductive coercion or like coercion against getting an abortion to like take place on student health centers. Folks are being really like mindful about, you know, making sure that the information is like non-directive and like unbiased as much as possible. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much. I've heard so many stories of people going to get, an abortion and been like people trying to talk them out of it at clinics. And I can understand like that's so like difficult to deal with. To have someone, try to pressure you into something that you've already thought about. So I just wanted to make sure it isn't happening on campuses, because that would suck. But thank you so much. I'm really excited.
Thank you, Faith, and thank you again, Sonia. Okay. For the sake of time, I think we'll move on, but there will be more breaks for questions. Okay, so the next little chunk of this presentation is why MAB is important. So abortion is normal, and this is part of why it's important. In 2014, according to the Guttmacher Institute, about 1 in 4 women will have an abortion by age 45. Again, this is with the preface that it's talking about cis women, but still, that's a pretty large amount of people. And also medication abortion is also very normal. An estimated 500 students per month seek MAB on CSU and UC campuses alone. In addition, more than half of all abortions in the US are medication abortions, as I said before. So abortion is normal. That's one reason that it's important. And then another big thing is that until now, right, with this bill, public universities had not been offering abortion services, despite the fact that abortion is healthcare and that there is the demand from students for this service. Also, the student health centers, they do provide contraceptives like IUDs and Plan B, and other reproductive healthcare services. So it just makes the most sense that abortion would also be included in those. And then abortion is legal in all 50 states, but legality does not mean access. And this means that like anti-abortion bans, any kind of restrictions and sentiment impound, equitable access to abortions. And when access is compromised, those with unwanted pregnancies are forced to confront huge obstacles in order to carry out the pregnancy. And this, especially right now, where we are historically, Roe v. Wade is, set like the legal precedent, but it was never really enough for everyone. Like there are still issues with accessing abortion, especially through like an intersectional lens, like we are in a women's studies space. So through an intersectional lens, like depending on different like social locations and identity factors, there can be a lot of issues, which I'll get more into. But basically, especially because for decades, the anti-abortion movement has been chipping away at our access and our rights. And Roe is likely to fall this summer. It's going to be really important to have medication abortion on campus, since California will have to prepare for an influx of people who are able to travel to the state to seek care. So that's kind of another, it's a very like timely implementation. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. So some barriers to abortion, again, they disproportionately affect people who have already been marginalized by the unjust systems in our society. And just reproductive oppression is both a product and a tool of other forms of oppression, such as sexism, homophobia, racism, classism, ableism, and others. Like it's very, very interconnected. And then again, these barriers can include legal, so like abortion bans, financial, sometimes abortion care is really unaffordable, and logistical, like this can be a big issue with like transportation, the proximity to clinics, and then limited clinics in general, right? Like some states only have like one clinic in the entire state. So I'm going to get more into barriers specifically for CSUs and UCs, but these could be explored in any context, but just for this presentation. So financial, UC and CSU students are already subjected to financial stressors. Over half of students across the UC and CSU systems are defined as low income based on qualifying for a Pell Grant. And for CSU students, 21% experience food insecurity. We know on our campus it's closer to half. And also 9% of CSU students suffer from housing displacement. I'm going to guess that these numbers have also increased since the pandemic. So that's like another thing to keep in mind. And paying for an abortion out of pocket at an off-campus provider may be really difficult, especially for already financially stressed students, as the average cost of MAB at providers closest is $604. It's a pretty good chunk of money for a college student. And this can be a further issue with if students don't have health insurance, or if the provider do not accept student or private health insurance. And of course, again, going back to intersectionality, the economic situation of students is inherently tied to race, class, gender, sexual orientation, and so on. So these are some financial barriers. Transportation barriers. Many campuses don't have an abortion provider close by. In fact, up to 62% of students are more than 30 minutes away from the closest abortion facility via public transportation. And I bring up the public transportation, not so much on our campus. I know we're like mostly a commuter school, but most other schools, students won't have like a car with them, so they're going to have to rely on the public transport. And because medication abortion requires 2 visits to an off-campus provider as of now, on average, students can spend up to 2 hours using public transit to access MAB. And this goes against standard medical care as defined by Medi-Cal, which is, quote, obstetricians and gynecology primary care providers must be located within 10 miles or 30 minutes from your home. So spending over 2 hours is not, it's not cutting it for standard medical care. And then in addition, seeking MAB off campus can cause delays in care and interruption to coursework, as there are limited weekend appointment options and on average appointment wait time of 5 to 7 days. Another thing tying it back to the financial barriers is that like the longer that you are forced to wait to have the abortion, like if it becomes the longer you are in the pregnancy, like the procedure will be more complex, and it could be more expensive or more difficult to find a provider willing to do the procedure. So that's like it's like a vicious cycle is what I'm trying to say. If like the farther away, the longer it is, the more expensive, the harder to get. Okay, so then student well-being and college participation. I like this quote here from the study that I've been referencing, but it says young adults who want to obtain an abortion for an unplanned pregnancy need timely access to care to ensure continuation and completion of their college education. So again, we're college students, professors, staff, faculty. I'm not sure who all is on this call, but if you're part of the university, like the main point is for students to get their degree. And so not having MAB on campus can put a big stress or halt on that. Because the stress of leaving campus can adversely affect students' well-being. This is because traveling is stressful, expensive, and time-consuming, as I've said. So having equitable and convenient access to MAB on campus is integral to maintaining California's university students' emotional, mental, physical, financial, and academic health. So to recap, this is why MAB on campus is important. Abortion is safe in a normal healthcare service. About one fourth of women will have an abortion in their lifetime. 54% of all abortions in the US are with medication abortion. Having medication abortion on campus will alleviate student barriers to access, such as legal, financial, and logistical barriers. Everyone deserves affordable, timely, and comprehensive abortion care, and MAB on campus is essential, not only for access to reproductive health care, but for furthering equity and social justice overall. So there's a lot of information, so we'll take a breather. We can just take a couple deep breaths, or if anyone has any questions, now would be a good time to ask too. But we're almost to the part where we can have a discussion. So thank you all for listening. Do you really think Roe will fall this year? Granted, I feel it could, but what is it you and those paying attention expect? Everything that I've been hearing, it really looks like it is. And it seems like URGE and other organizations that are similar are just like trying to expect or trying to prepare for that. Yeah, I don't know, all of my classes, like my women's studies classes or anyone who's paying attention, I keep hearing that it's going to fall. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to add on to that. But yeah, it's a bummer. But like I said before, like Roe was never perfect to begin with. So yeah. Okay. Of course. Okay. Are we ready to move on? Almost at the part where everyone gets to talk. Okay. So how to talk about abortion. Number one, be inclusive. Number two, be abortion positive. So what does being inclusive mean? As I've said before, women are not the only people who seek abortions. Transgender and non-binary people may also seek abortions. So people, really anyone of any identity at all could seek an abortion, right? So it's important to include everyone when speaking of the needs of those who seek abortions in order to dispute any harmful myths and to validate the experiences of all reproductive bodies. And then this is some suggested language. This chart is very medical and it's kind of like general. But for instance, if we look at like the third little like box here, it says instead of saying women may become pregnant without contraception, you could say pregnancy may occur without contraception, or you could say someone could become pregnant. And so you can really, again, like someone seeking an abortion instead of like a woman seeking an abortion. This is a really great practice for like any topic really, but especially within reproductive health care, just to be inclusive and to be accurate as well. So yeah, so that's some suggested language. It can be kind of clunky at first if you're not used to thinking that way, but just practice and you'll get the hang of it. Okay, so then be abortion positive. Being abortion positive means no shame, no stigma, and no apologies. Knowing that abortion isn't a bad word and that abortion isn't a bad decision. Sharing your abortion story if you wanted to. And making it clear to family and friends that you will be a resource and a source of support for anyone who needs an abortion, and moving abortion health rights and justice movements to action, not just defense. So in terms of like, what I hope that you would take away from this presentation is that you would internalize these and start to try and practice being pro-abortion, just like in your everyday life. Okay, so yeah, any more questions? And then I think we're gonna move over to, yeah, discussion. We're good. We're very good on time. And totally feel free to unmute if you want to, but also the chat works.
I have one, Val. Are you leading the way for campuses across California? Are you just leading the way for your campus, or is this sort of hopefully encompassing all campuses across America?
So me personally, I just like represent my campus, I guess. And I know other people, like there are several other students who are on this pro-abortion student advisory board, like across the state from CSUs and UCs. So yeah, URGE and this like program is reflective of all of the UCs and CSUs. And then this, the College Right to Student Access Act is just for the California public universities. But you know, we would hope that this would become standard for every college system in every state. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, cool. Are we ready to hop into our little discussion? Okay. So feel free to come off mute or type in the chat, or if you just want to journal about these. I have a couple questions, or if you don't like them, like we can talk about something else too. But my food for thought was, what will having MAB on campus mean to you and to students in general? And how can we make CSUSM a more pro-abortion campus? So I'll give everyone the floor. Do we not like these questions? Because we could talk about something else.
How long has it been on campus, or is it just coming?
It's just coming in January of next year. So we're not quite there yet, but we will be soon. Yeah, I don't know. Does anyone have any ideas? I was really interested to hear what anyone thought about how we can make CSUSM a more pro-abortion campus. If anyone has any ideas, and there's no bad ideas. Faith, yeah.
I would say for them to like kind of promote more events like this, like the one that you're hosting, Val. Like I know that a lot of the, like in the women's gender and sexuality studies, a lot of the professors promoted it, and a lot of them promoted it as extra credit. But this is going to be campus wide. It's going to be for the whole campus. So why not promote and talk about it throughout the whole campus? I think that's like one of the first steps for when it is coming on campus, especially because they have until next year to implement it fully at its full capacity. So I just think they could do better on promoting SB 24, because if I wasn't in Feminist Unite and being in that Urge chapter, I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have known that this is available to me, that I am able to ask for this, and that is coming to campus. So I just think they need to be better at informing students about the resources that they have and be specific. Because like even before this, I think you were allowed to get like Plan B at the student center, and I didn't know that. I had no idea. So I just think they need to do better at promoting the resources that they do have and that we can get. I think that would be the first step.
Definitely. Yeah, we did like a statewide and campus-based surveys, kind of asking similar questions, and just over and over, everyone was kind of like, I don't really know what the Student Health Center offers to begin with, so I wouldn't know that they would offer this as well. So definitely, it would be really great if campuses were just like, hey, this is coming. And Sarah suggested a campus newsletter. I love that idea. We all get like the huge emails and newsletters. Yeah, that would be really cool. Huge emails. I would love to see that. Or like in our oh my gosh. I'm forgetting what it's called, but our school newspaper, the Cougar Chronicle also. And then Phoenix shared, definitely people shouldn't have to travel far for healthcare. There's already a student clinic on campus, and abortion should be included in that care. Yeah, definitely. It just makes sense, right? Okay, so Esther put in the chat, I'm just wondering if this will cause smaller protests to happen on campus, since we already have anti-abortion religious speakers who regularly visit campus. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly. Like, it's kind of funny because like no one really, or the campus isn't like, I don't know if they'll like announce it or anything. So it's kind of like, how would they know, as Faith was just saying. But also I know that our campus has like a particular history with like anti-abortion folks. So it'll be interesting to see. Overall, I just wish that the campus would take a harder stance on like the whole free speech issue, just because they do really allow religious bigots to come on, and they're like, oh, we can't do anything, which just is really upsetting to students and everyone on the campus. So I don't know if that doesn't really, I don't know who's to say, but it's not really like, the service is coming no matter what, Yeah, anything else anyone wants to share?
I'll just chip in quickly, Val, and just say, Sarah, I really appreciated your comment too around, in a way, though, protests bring about discussion. And yeah, I think for y'all, as you know, the campus climate the best, and right, like you have the most experience kind of like navigating support for one another when you're faced with like, anti-abortion bigotry or like extremism on campus. Like, what are the ways in which we could like utilize, right, like networks of support and like organize to proactively like address any risk of folks feeling unsafe? Like there's really cool ideas, but between Urge members right now, and talking about like de-escalation trainings, or just like clinic escort programs, or really just meeting like the need, because right, each campus climate is going to respond differently, and that in there could be like an opportunity for right, like further education and organizing, and working to create networks of support for folks seeking that care if they're like mental health, or if if that like risk of protest is like real on your campus in that way. So definitely food for thought for y'all as like, you know, you're navigating implementation.
Thank you, Sonia. Is there any marketing budget in the funding, just a small budget to make some stickers or pamphlets? So I know we were working on a pamphlet to put at the student health center. Yeah, we've done we did like a MAB on campus social media campaign last fall. I'm sure we'll be talking about it like on social media again. Urge's Instagram is really cool and fun, so we're definitely thinking about that, and those are great suggestions. I'm assuming, yeah, the pamphlet would still be going to student health centers, right, Sonia? Is that's still in the works?
Yeah, it totally can. And there's also just generally the funding, the $200,000 that is going to the student health centers for implementation is very loose in terms of its like restrictions, as long as it is being spent to support the implementation of medication abortion and like the provision. So I would also hope that student health centers are thinking about utilizing some of those funds to, you know, advertise on campus as well.
Yes, thank you for that. That's a really, really important part that I wanted to mention, but I'm glad that you did. If no one else wants to participate in this discussion, we can move along and maybe end like a little early too. So are we good do we want to move on to our closing? Thank you so much for everyone who did participate and all the great ideas. I will definitely take them and share them with others. And yeah, just thank you all so much for sharing. Okay, so I just wanted to give a little time for like any sort of closing or reflection. If anyone wanted to like share something that they learned that they didn't know that they thought was really cool or surprising, or yeah, just any like final thoughts or anything that this sparked in anyone. Again, feel free to put in the chat or come off of mute. Yeah, that's it, just to give a little reflection time. Faith?
I just wanted to say thanks for having this event and sharing all this information. I think it's super helpful. And yeah, I hope anyone who's interested in being a part of Urge joins Feminists Unite. Yeah, y'all are great. So thank you again, Val.
Thank you, Faith. Thank you.
Val, I think you're amazing. So there.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other reflections, I just wanted to give a quick of like how to get more involved. Yeah, thank you all so much, y'all, for coming and listening. I know I was talking a ton, so thank you for listening. So just quickly for how to get more involved, if you are a student on campus, definitely join Feminists Unite, or your like local Urge chapter if you're not at San Marcos. And so that's one big thing. Pledge to be pro-abortion, like I was talking about earlier. Definitely do your own research, whether that's reading the Turnaway study or oh, I gotta drop the links in the chat that I was talking about. I'll do that right now real quick. Let's see, let me make sure they work. So okay, these ones are they're pretty short. I think they're easy to get through, but they're just good to be in the know, and obviously like you don't have to take my word for anything. Okay, just a couple really cool informational resources that I would love for y'all to check out. So yeah, so definitely do your own research, always, right? That's just good practice. And then oh yeah, definitely like on the note of not a lot of people know what this is, like talk about it with your friends, your colleagues, your family, your peers, wherever it's safe to do so and comfortable, of course. But, or like if you're a professor, like let your students know. Definitely just like talking about it, the more people will know, which would be really great. And then I also just wanted to suggest maybe like if you have the means to take some action is to donate to an abortion fund if you can. Really anywhere, but you know, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Ohio, anywhere that's really being hit with abortion bans. That's always really helpful and like feels good to take to do something. I feel like I'm missing something, but oh yes, Sonia, of course. Yeah, if you're interested in joining the Pro-Abortion Student Advisory Board that I'm on, but I'll be graduating, so I'll be leaving. So there'll be more spots. But anyway, the application, the deadline is Friday. And thank you so much, Sonia. I can't believe I forgot to say that, but yeah, definitely. And if you have any more questions, again, here's my email. I'll put it in the chat if anyone wants to email me about PASA or about anything else. But yeah, and there's Feminist Unite like email and Instagram too. But I think that's everything I have. And just thank you all so much again for coming and for participating. So yeah, I'll give you back 11 minutes of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Val.
Thank you.
Thank you, Val.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Hush, Sarah.